Good morning. I'm a trustee of Ambleside Action for a Future. We're a community network doing what we can about climate change and biodiversity. We're not experts, just residents concerned about what we see as the lack of serious action on climate change from the powers that be. We're based in Ambleside, so I'm going to focus on the national park. When I mention I live in Ambleside, people usually comment on the traffic and say that they avoid going there at busy times. And the quiet in the coronavirus lockdowns really brought home to us how badly traffic does affect our environment. Julian Glover's landscapes review for DEFRA highlighted that, I think the quote was, unlimited car use can spoil the natural beauty of the special places that people come to see in the first place. And it proposed a new way of coordinating public transport should be piloted in the Lake District, with the National Park Authority becoming the strategic transport authority. From next April, there'll be two separate transport authorities covering the national park, and that seems to me to be a move in the wrong direction and likely to lead to less coordination and fewer opportunities for piloting new approaches. Surely now is the time to implement the Glover proposal. Of course, the greatest impact of cars isn't the inconvenience of congestion or their blots on the landscape, but how their emissions are changing the global climate. And travelling here this morning reminded me of the devastation caused by Storm Desmond. That was my route to work back then, and why it's important to address climate change to prevent more frequent events like that. Dimitri will correct me, this is a little bit out of date. If I'm wrong, but according to the baseline report for Zero Carbon Cumbria Partnership, emissions from driving make up a third of the total carbon footprint of residents and visitors. And Zero Carbon Cumbria has got this target of net zero by 2037, and I can't see that there's any chance of achieving that unless there's radical action taken to reduce traffic emissions. And we need a major shift from cars to public transport, walking and cycling. Like other community groups around Cumbria, we're trying to do our bit. For example, we're working with a publisher to promote car-free walking around Ambleside. We're looking at setting up a community e-bike scheme based on the Staveley model. But really, this is just tinkering at the edges. We've been pressing for action from those who've got the power to make real changes, including the County Council, the National Park, both of whom are actually members of Zero Carbon Cumbria. So what have we seen from them? And over the last year or so, there have been several major reports published. The Lake District National Parks Plan states that it supports the 2037 net zero target. However, it includes a target to reduce the carbon emissions from visitor travel by just 10% over the 5 years of that plan. At that rate, visitor emissions will still be 70% of what they are now by 2037. And the plan doesn't include any targets for reducing emissions from residents' travel. The Transport Infrastructure Plan does have some warm words about decarbonising transport and some good stuff on cycling, for example. But as far as I can see, it sets no targets for traffic reduction, and it's actually got plans for new roads and developments of Carlisle Airport, both of which would increase emissions. The Bus Service Improvement Plan sets a target of only 10% growth in passengers by 2025. If that's achieved, it won't even bring bus passenger numbers back up to what they were in 2017. Completely inconsistent with the stated aim of the Transport Infrastructure Plan to decarbonise transport, especially in the light of growing visitor numbers. Cumbria County Council provides, with very few exceptions, no financial support for bus services. And no wonder that we've got some of the highest bus fares in the country and poor services in some areas. The plans talk about integrated ticketing. We need integrated timetables too. This morning, coming from Ambleside, the first bus from Ambleside to Windermere to catch the train gets to Windermere just after the first train leaves. Some good-looking cycling and walking infrastructure plans here for the towns around Cumbria, but nothing in the lakes. There's plans for a cycling corridor on the A591, but there's nothing in there that addresses the real pinch points around Ambleside, like past the Lowood, for example, where a lot of locals will not cycle because of the danger of the road. So we know that people tend to stick to their cars, as somebody said, even if there's good public transport. So we need some disincentives for people using cars. A couple of years ago, we put forward the case for an eco charge on traffic entering the Lake District, with the income being used to generate, being used to fund comprehensive, integrated, affordable public transport system. Inevitably, the press put its own spin on it, called it a congestion charge, but it did lead to a debate. Keswick Town Council and several parish councils wrote to the County Council asking them to commission a feasibility study into such a charge. It was blocked, even though it was simply a request for a study into how such a scheme might work. One of the arguments commonly put forward against restricting traffic is it will exclude certain people. In fact, many people are excluded now because of the costs and difficulties of visiting and living in the national park without a car. A fifth of people in the UK don't have access to a car. And of course, they tend to be the people from poorer economic and social backgrounds. We're not going to achieve the change needed by turning a few roads into quiet lanes or getting people to use e-bikes a bit more, or by the piecemeal introduction of a few demand responsive bus services or gradual transition to electric vehicles. We need radical change. This symposium is about place-based innovation, and as the Glover report pointed out, what better place is there to start radical innovation than in the Lake District World Heritage Site? We want to be part of a World Heritage Site that's worthy of its name and a leader in transport solutions.